The Washington Compost and CBS, they say, Obama leads Romney in Ohio with women by 25%. Now let's pretend that's true. Let's pretend it's 5%. What explains that? What explains women? And to be more specific, single women, doesn't necessarily mean single women without children or grandchildren, but single women supporting Obama. What explains that? I mean, right or wrong, you have to wonder why so many women are attracted to a guy who's a complete failure and menace. Is it not true? I'm asking, is it not true that the most important reason for living, for bringing children into the world, is to nurture them, is to protect them, make sure they're safe, to ensure their well-being? Don't we want them to be happy and successful and in turn respectful and good citizens? Isn't this what family's all about? Isn't this what a healthy society, not government, a healthy society is all about? Well, I want to give you some really important statistics you haven't heard anywhere else. And you tell me if Barack Obama is what I say he is and have said he is for years now, the greatest political child abuser in modern history, and then maybe some of you single women with children or grandchildren who support Obama can tell me why. Because apparently, according to the Washington Compost and CBS and others, there are millions of you. Millions of you. Now, you ready? Am I ready? Yes, let me find the damn thing. Here's some statistics I want you to listen to. These are statistics I'm giving you that your children and grandchildren and children unborn are going to have to deal with when they're our age. And you young people in the audience, you should be furious because we are denying you the same liberty, the same opportunity that our parents gave to us. We are going to enslave you to the state financially and legally in ways you cannot possibly imagine right now. Now, I want you to listen to this. This information is based on the Congressional Budget Office's long-term outlook released in June. Each household share of the federal debt will climb to $382,000 over the next 25 years, an additional $287,000 compared with today's levels. So if you have an 8-year-old kid, 3-year-old, 12-year-old, they'll be young adults, be in their 20s and 30s. Over the next 20 years, high debt levels will lower the U.S.'s cumulative economic output by roughly $29 trillion. In other words, we're impoverishing ourselves. We're impoverishing the next generation and the generation after that. That's what we're giving them. By 2037, 25 years from now, the federal government will spend $2.7 trillion per year in interest payments alone, more than a quarter of our entire federal budget that year, greater than the total federal budget in 2003. By 2025, 13 years from now, mandatory health care spending, Social Security, and the interest costs will consume 100% of the revenues that the federal government takes in. Mandatory health care like Obamacare, Social Security, and interest. That's it. Oh, what about money for education? What about money for this? What about money for that? The Congressional Budget Office also warned that, quote, growing debt would increase the probability of a sudden fiscal crisis during which investors would lose confidence in the government's ability to manage its budget, and the government would thereby lose its ability to borrow at affordable rates. Quote, unquote. What are we doing to our children and our grandchildren? And 25% women in Ohio, by 25%, support this, according to the Washington Compost and CBS. The president's budget does not, contrary to his endless lies, pay down our debt, quote unquote. Instead, debt would increase to more than $25 trillion in 10 years under the president's plan. It's $16 trillion today. He adds over $9 trillion in 10 years. If we're lucky. Your kids. Those kids you take to soccer practice, Little League, swim team, your kids, who you would die for, who you would do anything for, we're destroying them. They have no idea. And we know who's pushing this. And we know who won't stop it. And yet in Ohio, according to the Washington Compost and CBS, Obama's leading among women over Romney by 25%. Want to hear something else? This you haven't heard. The U.S. debt per household, right now it's $138,000, is more than double what it is in Spain today, which is $64,000. Have you looked at the news today? I know it's hard, but every now and then, did you take a peek? They're rioting in Spain. Just like they were rioting in Greece. Just like they were rioting in Portugal. Just like they were rioting in Great Britain. Just like they're going to riot here if we don't put an end to this as soon as possible. Over just the next 5 years, U.S. debt per household is on course to jump another $40,000 in 5 years to $176,000, while Spain's is on course to increase by $20,000 to $84,000. You know where this data comes from? The International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Do you have $176,000? You better start saving. That doesn't even include off-budget items, like entitlements. Doesn't even include that, which is into the tens of trillions of dollars and will never be paid back. Let me be... You ladies out there, who according to the Washington Compost and CBS, you ladies in Ohio and every other state, you adore Obama. By a big margin. By a wide, wide margin. Really? If your husband were doing this to your children, what would you think? If your neighbor were doing this to your children, what would you think? If your baseball, soccer coach, swim coach were doing this to your children, what would you think? You'd be disgusted. You'd fight it. You'd protect your children. Well, all I can say is wake the hell up. Because your children are being threatened by the greatest political child abuser in modern American history.